good, quick answers. I can be succinct.
Yeah. Just have it's all about like this section, the quick fire 5 they are put into the episode before you as an advertisement, like, hey, this is coming up. And it's really just to showcase your personality and you know, and if you're silly and fun, then people are like, okay, this guy's episode's going to be kind of fun and lighthearted. Sometimes people are really serious, and that's okay. And then people know, like, okay, next week's episode's going to be a little more, logistical, or a little, you can just kind of tell, You know, you podcast, you know, do you have guests on, or do you just talk the whole time?
No, I have guests on. In fact, my podcasts are pretty much all guests. I've had just a handful of ones where I just talk. I think once I build a little bit more of a following and a little bit more equity with my following, I could see myself doing more talking. But right now, I think it's more interesting to have other people doing the talking than me.
Yeah, ours is all guests. Like, nobody wants to hear me talk, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly how I think. So it's going to make for an interesting hour.
Sometimes JT tells me, he's like, okay, you talked way too much in that episode. He's like, let the guest be the expert and not you. Because I've worked in the clubs my whole career.
Sure.
So sometimes I'm kind of like, well, when I was the sales director, and he's like, nobody gives a story. Like,
that's how I think about me on my podcast. I might be right there with them.
He's like, you're not the industry expert. The guest is the industry expert, you know, because I'll be like, oh, this marketing thing that we used to do. And he's like,
I love it.
All right, here we go. I'm going to count us down. I'll do a quick intro, and then we'll start with the quick fire 5 questions. In 3, 2. Michael Stack is our industry expert today for our quick fire 5 questions. Michael is a clinical professor for the University of Michigan's School of Kinesiology. He's the creator of the Wellness Paradox podcast, and he's also the founder and CEO of Applied Fitness Solutions, which is fitness clubs in his area. So, Michael, welcome to Quick Fire 5.
Thanks, Dori.
All right, this is where we're going to have a little fun. I'm going to ask you 4 fun questions, and then your final question, you kind of get to pitch yourself for 30 seconds for next week's episode. So let's get started with the 4 fun questions. The first one is, what is a life lesson you learned from the pandemic?
The life lesson I learned from the pandemic is that if you create an amazing culture within your organization and you really cultivate that in your community, that will come back to you in spades in terms of what people are willing to do for you and how they're willing to support you.
And if you could play a character in any movie, what character would it be?
Would absolutely be a Jedi in Star Wars, without a doubt. Without any question, I'd want to be. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that's the character I want to play, kind of the old, wise, sage coach, but absolutely a Jedi.
Love that. Yoda is like I just want Yoda to be part of my family somehow, some way.
I'm with you.
I'm like Star Wars and Harry Potter geek, major Star Wars and Harry Potter geek. So pretty cool. I like that answer. All right, here we go. Please complete this statement. Sunday morning, you can find me
normally reading an academic journal, which probably speaks to what a dork that I am, that I'm picking up medicine, science, and sport and exercise on Sunday morning to do some reading, but I actually find it very therapeutic and very peaceful.
I thought for sure you were going to be saying like slaying your lightsaber around the family room or something.
No, that's Saturday night.
All right, here we go. What is your number 1 book recommendation our FBP family should read?
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Without a doubt. I think that is a book. I bought that book for every single person that I've gone to their graduation party. And I think it is a book that you should read and reread over again.
That it is. It's a classic.
It is.
Here's your chance to pitch your episode next week. Take it away.
I am incredibly passionate about making fitness and wellness professionals part of the healthcare continuum. I think for far too long, we've been disconnected from healthcare, and we have the answers to solve a lot of this country's most pressing chronic disease problems. The COVID-19 pandemic showed us, because we were shut down, that we weren't part of healthcare in a healthcare crisis. And now we need to rally as an industry with one voice to actually become part of the healthcare continuum, because the health of our country, and quite frankly, the health of our economy, depends on it.
Well, Michael Stack, we look forward to you coming on next week as an industry expert. Thank you so much for participating in our quickfire 5 questions.
Thank you.
Okay, top to bottom, that was super easy, super smooth. Great job. Yep. Oh, Jedi, I love. Yeah, so I have a daughter and I have a son, and I blame my son because, this little boy, and we traveled a lot. We had family that was in North Carolina. So we'd make 8-hour drives all the time.
Oh, wow.
So I just got him into like the Star Wars series. Well,
keep him busy.
Yeah. So my husband would drive. I'd be stone cold bored in the passenger seat. So I'd sit in the back while they had their little little video players at the time. And somehow I just got pulled into the whole Star Wars thing. And then, he had the little figurines and, of course, mom's the one buying all of those. My husband was not into Star Wars. So,
Oh, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I have those little figurines at home too. So, you could be a kid at any age with Star Wars, which is why I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. He has a tackle box. We organize them all. We still have it. This big tackle box of his little.
I love it.
Then we shifted into Harry Potter. So again, I somehow became, me and the 2 kids became the Harry Potter gurus. My husband's kind of like, he has no clue who any of the characters are, besides Harry, I think. So
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get started in on your main interview. I'd like to try to keep about 20 minutes. Did I bring my phone in? I don't think I did. Let's see. Okay, so it's 6:15. So we'll try to go to about 6:35.
Got it.
Give or take a minute or two.
Yep.
I do edit this. So if we need to start over, which many times I do, it's fine. If you find that you're going in a wrong direction, if you need me to re-ask a question, whatever it may be, just kind of give me a little timeout. We'll stop and we'll restart again.
Okay. All right.
All right. I think we'll get going. I'm going to introduce you again, and then we're going to get started right off about your podcast.
Awesome.
We'll get it out. Do you edit your podcast or do you not?
I rarely have to edit my podcast. There's very few of my guests that I've had on that I've had to do any editing for. That says a lot more about my guests than it really says about me. But it has happened here or there. I was interviewing David Katz and his dog was squeaking a squeaky toy in the background. I was interviewing John Berardi and his daughter came into the room twice during our conversation to both talk about her concerns about going to the dentist that day. That required a little bit of editing, but for the most part, I haven't had to do much editing. And my goal, at least on my end, to try to not make you have to do any editing because I know that's always a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's usually me. I stutter and they want me to take all of that out. Any
yeah,
there's an awkward pause, man. They're pretty strict about me taking all of that. Like, so I edit it and then it goes to a professional editor.
Got it.
And I have to write everything down. I script it all. And then he goes through and professionally edits. And then he always there's never been a time where he hasn't emailed me back and said, okay, I took out a couple of there was some awkward silence, things like that.
Wow.
I'm like, he makes me sound really good. That's what I say.
It's amazing what you can do in post-production, right?
Oh, yeah. Or he'll say, I have a terrible habit where I kind of ask the same question twice before he's like, just say it once. I'm like, well, I think I do. He's like, no, you don't. Sometimes you like, and I'm like, all right. So he's like, I took the first part out. I'm like, all right. So
I love it. That's great.
Yeah. Love my editor. I'm telling you, I put him pretty high on the pedestal. He's pretty.
Makes sense.
All right, here we go. Let's count us down and I will get us started in 3, 2. Welcome back for another episode of the Fitness Business Podcast. My industry expert today is Michael Stack. Michael, welcome to the Fitness Business Podcast.
Thanks, Dori. Happy to be here.
We are really excited to have you here. Your background is phenomenal. You are a clinical professor for the University of Michigan's School of Kinesiology. You are the creator of the Wellness Paradox podcast, which we're going to talk about in just a short second. And you're also the founder and CEO of Applied Fitness Solutions, which I believe you have a couple locations.
Yep, 4 locations in southeastern Lower Michigan.
All right, fantastic. So let's get started. And I want to just kind of talk to you right off the bat about your podcast. It's called The Wellness Paradox. Now, I find that that's such a very unique name. So I'd love for you to tell all of our listeners out there exactly what does the name mean and what exactly do you cover on your podcast?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that as a starting point, and I'm glad you find some uniqueness in the name. For me, the wellness paradox has always been this notion that there's a massive disconnect between our healthcare community and our fitness and wellness professionals. And that disconnect, in my mind, exists in 3 areas. The first area is trust. There's not trust between the medical community and the fitness and the wellness community. There's not interaction between those 2 communities, and there's not a collaborative effort to improve population health. And that's incredibly paradoxical to me, because now with the chronic disease epidemic that we have as a country, it is fitness and wellness professionals and intensive lifestyle interventions that can mitigate some of the most pressing chronic disease issues that we have as a healthcare system. And the fact that we're not talking to one another, at the very least, but interacting with each other for the betterment of population health, that is an untenable paradox to me. And the goal of the podcast is to put this out there and say, not only do I think this, but there are other people that think this, and not just a few other people. There are a lot of other people that think this. And on the podcast, we try to talk about different ways to view the entry into the healthcare system for fitness and wellness professionals. I've been very, very blessed to have a lot of amazing guests that have been able to talk about this from multiple different perspectives. And I don't imagine that any one episode or even all of my episodes will solve the paradox, but at least if it moves the conversation in the right direction and creates a greater level of conscious awareness around it, then I think we're doing something positive, not just for our industry, but for the health of our country.
And I love that you're one of the reasons, let me start over. One of the reasons why we brought you on to the Fitness Business Podcast is because there is definitely a disconnect. I get a lot of people asking me for more episodes like this, which is why today's topic is called Making Fitness Part of Healthcare. So I'd like to just ask you your opinion on this, and that is, are our systems across the globe set up for healthcare or sick care?
Yeah, without a doubt, it's set up for sick care. And I would even maybe amend the second part of that term to say we're set up for sick management. We do a very, very good job of managing illness in our, in air quotes, healthcare system. And there's many reasons for that, far more than what we can get into on a short podcast. But we're not set up like that now, but we're moving in that direction. I truly believe that there is momentum behind moving to more of a health care type of model. We're sitting here as we record this, these 2 days are the Future of Fitness Summit that's being put on by Club Industry. And it's to talk about the healthcare fitness integration. And these conversations are happening, but as we know, medicine is very institutionalized. I don't want to use the word archaic, but it's definitely slow to adapt. There's a lot of inertia in the current quote unquote healthcare system. And we need to start being very forward thinking about how we modify our systems if we are truly going to be healthcare rather than sick management.
Now, if you had a crystal ball and you could look into it, you looked at 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, tell everybody listening about your vision for healthcare and the integration.
Well, my ideal vision, and I don't even know if it becomes a reality in 20 years, is that you would have exercise and fitness and wellness professionals who would have access to EMR systems. They would electronic medical records. They'd be getting direct referrals from physicians. They'd be able to provide feedback to physicians. I think a good proxy model for this is physical therapy for orthopedic issues. That entire ecosystem is exactly what can exist for chronic lifestyle diseases such as diabetes and other cardiometabolic disorders. And we can have the same infrastructure, but we haven't started to develop it yet. But if we patterned it after physical therapy, I think that's the ultimate way to effectuate this vision. And that's a case where physical therapists are working hand in hand with orthopedic doctors to improve overall health of the patient on an individual level, and then overall population health on a broader level.
So I don't know how you feel about this. I definitely feel like the fitness industry is really trying their best to make a push to integrate this. It's just the question of, is the medical side trying to do the same, make the same exact effort as the fitness industry is?
Well, I think a progressive cohort of the medical field is, because I think they realize what's happening from a reimbursement perspective. Not to get too much in the weeds on this, but we are definitely going to a value-based care model for reimbursement. We're going to a model that is capitated, where basically they're going to say, hey, you're going to get X amount of money for this patient when they come in. And it doesn't matter how long they stay there for, or what drugs you administer, or what treatments you do, you're only getting X. And we know, COVID's a great example, that somebody who is not as fit, is not as healthy, is going to be a greater economic drain on the system. So I think that healthcare is moving in that direction because reimbursement is going to move them there, follow the money in any business. But I also will say that I think our industry is pushing this initiative, but I don't know, and I can expand on this if you'd like, I don't know if we're using the right language and the right imaging and then the right overarching narrative to actually make this a reality.
So how would you make it a reality?
I think our messaging as an industry has not changed in 35 to 40 years. Our messaging largely makes the fit fitter, essentially. Like, we are talking to the same 15 to 20% of the population. If we are going to truly become part of healthcare and work with the other 80 to 85% of the population, we need to start using more approachable and inclusive language and imagery. I think we need to move away from words like fitness and exercise. It doesn't mean we discard them, but we start to also use words like physical activity and movement. I think our imagery and the people that you see in our ads and our commercials and our print ads and our social media ads, they need to look like the people that we want to help. They need to be diverse in terms of body shape, body size, gender, ethnicity. There's such a broad spectrum of people out there for us to help. But if you look at our messaging, our imagery, and our narratives, it's still all centered around the 15 to 20% of the population that we've been working with for the past 4 decades. And until we're willing to start to change those things, even just by a little bit, I don't think we're set up to really effectuate this transition the way we want to.
What I see that's very unique about yourself is that you're coming from a club owner, and you're also coming from a professor at, obviously at the University of Michigan. So putting those two hats together, what are the necessary steps that the fitness industry needs to make to help continue to push this in the right direction?
I think, in a word, trust. We need to cultivate trust. And we do that many ways. I think the first way we do that is by becoming more educated as an industry and speaking the same language that the medical community speaks. And I think this is where my two worlds do coalesce, because I'm teaching in this academic setting with the lens of the fitness industry, but I'm trying to get these young fitness professionals to understand the language that they need to talk with in order to be able to communicate effectively with medical professionals. But the trust extends even beyond just the requisite knowledge and using the proper language. It's also about taking the time to build relationships. And I think that that's a big thing that we tend to not spend a lot of time doing in our industry, is getting out of the 4 walls of our facility and having coffee with a physical therapist, buying a primary care physician lunch, and not necessarily doing it because you're trying to get something from them, but maybe you're trying to just add value to what they're doing. I can't tell you how many primary care physicians would love to have a trusted fitness professional they could refer to, because that guy or gal has 10 minutes to do everything they need with that person that walks in their office. And if he could offload or delegate some of the lifestyle change tasks to someone they trusted, would be a game changer. So we have to build trust. We definitely have to get out of our four walls. And I think more broadly speaking, as an industry, and I realize this word scares people, we need to move towards licensure for a certain segment of our fitness professionals. Not everyone, there can be a spectrum. Again, I'll use my proxy of physical therapy. There's a licensed physical therapist that exists who is kind of the trusted orthopedic professional. And then there's a physical therapy assistant, a PTA, that's not a licensed professional. And I think we can exist on that continuum in our industry. And I think licensure is a big key. And I don't necessarily see us getting this across the finish line until we're willing to move towards unification in licensure.
You talked a little bit about physical therapy. How important, or how would you like to see these physical therapy offices that are coming into health clubs? Does that, let me start over. Here's what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is I want to ask you, you're starting to see physical therapy, maybe that's how I want to say it. You're starting to see physical therapy offices come into health clubs. So let me try that here. Let me go. You mentioned the word physical therapy. I'm starting to see physical therapy offices start to make residency in health clubs. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a great gateway if we're able to use that gateway properly, because somebody who comes to physical therapy can easily be handed off to an exercise specialist after they've completed their physical therapy. And for anyone that knows anything about physical therapy reimbursements, most patients are getting 6, 12 visits that are approved by their insurance company, and they still need a lot more work. I think it's just another conduit through which we can engage with the healthcare community. And I think it's a very obvious relationship because they're doing exercise in a rehabilitative context. We do exercise from a fitness and a health context. And it just seems like there is a lot of seamless integration that could exist there if we're willing to think creatively about how we can develop those relationships. Overall, I think it's a very, very good thing because I think it can act as a gateway to help get fitness and wellness professionals on the healthcare continuum.
What I find interesting, and I'd like to hear your take on it, is, these drug reps come into the doctor's offices all the time and they gain such a trust with the drug reps. Wouldn't it be nice to see personal trainers come in and have the same appointment time with a physician to gain the same exact trust?
You're preaching to the choir. And here's the great thing. There are significant restrictions on what drug reps can do, what they can say, what they can provide. There are no restrictions for fitness professionals. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you should go and buy the doctor a trip to the Caribbean or something like that, but we have so much more latitude there. And I also think we have the opportunity to really add value to that physician's practice. I don't think the approach of a drug rep going in there to push a drug on a physician is the approach that we can take. I think we can go into a physician's office and say, hey, I would like to be able to provide this resource for you and your patients, to where you're actually adding value before you ask for anything. And in all honesty, I guarantee every fitness professional that's out there that works in a health club or maybe has their own private business, you have not just one client, but multiple clients who either are a physician or have strong relationships with their physician, where they could be your warm connection. They could be your foot in the door. And all it takes is one conversation with one primary care physician for you to have more clients than what you could ever want, because most PCPs see 500 on the low end to upwards of 1,500 on the high end patients. And if even a small percentage of those end up coming to you, you have more business than you know what to do with.
Wouldn't you just love to see, instead of the doctor writing a script for a blood pressure medication, the doctor to write a script to go for a gym membership and to exercise to help maybe either lose weight or, to help with the blood pressure?
It's happening, and it's happening in places. The medical fitness centers are also a great example of this. And kudos to the MFA for everything that they've done. But I want to say there are maybe 40 certified medical fitness centers around the country. And if we're really going to make a difference on population health, we have to proliferate that model beyond just those 40 or so medical fitness centers.
I had a guest on a couple months ago, and she has all these amazing certifications for personal trainers to take on such great niches, such as like, working with clients with osteoporosis, working with clients that maybe have scoliosis, arthritis, elders. And she just says they don't get taken advantage of as much as you would think they would.
Yeah. And I think it's incumbent on our industry and leaders in our industry to take a more proactive approach with educating their professionals. From my perspective, and this is how I've always ran my business, we have an education stipend for all of our fitness staff. And in all honesty, if they use their entire education stipend in a year and they came to me and they said, hey, I'd like to take this other course or buy this other book, I would gladly do it for them. We absolutely have to invest in the continuing education of our professionals if we are going to effectuate this vision of being part of the healthcare continuum. Doctors have to do CMEs. We know as trainers, we need to do CECs, but they actually have to be meaningful and impactful to this larger mission. It just can't be simply reading an article and answering some questions and then being done with it. We need to do things that are going to move us in the direction of being educated to work with special populations.
Yeah, she was talking about how the fact that we know there's just probably, I don't even know how many personal trainers out there just in the United States, never alone all the other countries, about setting yourself apart, especially in this business where sometimes there are a dime a dozen when it comes to personal trainers. And, how great would it be that you could advertise that you specialize in, post rehabilitation, or, again, working with somebody with osteoporosis, or maybe like postmenopausal for women, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think specialization is something that is very resonant with medical professionals. They understand the concept of specialization. And I think our industry, we need generalists in our industry, make no mistake about that, but we also need specialists, just as the medical field has generalists and they have specialists.
Absolutely agree with you. So, hey, one last question here. And again, I'm going to ask you to be a visualist, and that is, where do you see fitness professionals and health clubs fit in this new healthcare solution?
I see fitness and wellness professionals as frontline providers. I see what you said earlier, is that you have a physician that recognizes that a patient has some type of chronic lifestyle disease, and they write a script for that patient to go see a fitness and a wellness professional. And it's probably a multidisciplinary team. We have to understand that we have a scope of practice and we have to stay in our lane. The exercise professionals prescribe exercise. The dietetics professionals prescribe things that are nutrition related. But I see them as a frontline therapy, just like metformin now is the frontline therapy for someone who is pre-diabetic or diabetic. I would love to see, instead of that prescription being metformin, that a lifestyle intervention is prescribed. We see how that goes, and then maybe we consider metformin down the line. But I'd venture to say, if we do the lifestyle intervention well, we're never getting into the metformin. Well,
Mike, I really appreciate your time today on the Fitness Business Podcast. I feel like we really just scratched the surface with this. We'd love to maybe have you back again and kind of dive into this even deeper, and maybe even just next year, see where we're at if we're getting a little bit further. But really appreciate your expertise in this topic. I think it's much needed.
Thank you so much, Dori. I love being here.
All right. Fantastic. Great job.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I'm always the one that messes up. So
oh, you did great. Totally. It happens. I just keep mine on there. I guess you guys are way more serious about your editing than I am, but I only have to answer to myself. So